Hello, friends. I'd like you to consider checking out my book on origins and time. Is a young Earth possible? And it's well illustrated. It's got tons of footnotes, and I cover a lot of bases here. A lot of people have given me some good remarks on it so far. I appreciate your review on Amazon. I talk about Eisenhower and his interest in the lost map of Columbus. What that relates to is man's early exploration of the whole globe, like Thor Heyerdahl showed many decades ago. I also get into history. For example, the Mayans actually had the history of the world only to thousands of years. And I also talk about the written record of the Delaware tribe, the Red Record or the Wallam Olam, and how that connects to the Ice Age and arguing for a younger Earth. I believe in free speech, and I do consider other people's opinions in the book, and I actually have a chapter where I've compiled a lot of those opinions, some more famous, such as Ben Carson, the Secretary of HUD, and Rick Perry, the Secretary of Energy, and Senator Marco Rubio, but many others, some opinions I solicited, some on social media, and from various viewpoints, from various walks of life. So that's a very interesting chapter that I have. I have several chapters where I critique Darwinism, and one in particular I bring up the question, does Darwinism lead to depression? So if we're just here by chance and life is truly meaningless, why even get up in the morning? So this issue, the age of the Earth, is a young Earth possible? Well, I argue yes, and also have one chapter presenting various evidences, some not so well known, such as on the ocean floor, we find kind of like pearls, manganese nodules, and sometimes they form layers. Well, if this process has been going on for some time, say millions of years, well, then you would expect layer after layer after layer on the ocean floor. We don't find that. And so they can actually form fairly quickly. That fits in with a young ocean and also with a young Earth. So I try to bring in lots of various arguments on that. And I talk about catastrophism, because if most of the rock layers happen rapidly, and we don't really have these time gaps that allegedly are between the various layers, say on the Grand Canyon, then we can put most of the rock record into one great combination. So I would ask you to consider the young Earth viewpoint. Great stuff. So consider the types of life that we have. Did they evolve or did they not? So if they didn't, what's the opposite? Well, it's known as biological essentialism. You'll probably have to go to the history of science and philosophy of science, a category, to really get some research on this if you want to read some papers on it. But it's pretty clear that just like in math, we can tell the difference between various things, say a Klein bottle and a sphere or a donut, and other things. Well, in life, we can tell the difference between cats and bats and chimps and walruses. So even a 3-year-old notices that. Well, that's known as a biological essentialism. So that's actually the basic opposite of evolution, and even Aristotle had that part figured out. Well, that would imply that most of the rock record is part of one single event that happened probably not that long ago, just thousands of years, according to the various legends that we have. And even the founder of modern paleontology, Georges Cuvier, had that part figured out, that based on the historical records, this great catastrophe didn't happen that long ago. And therefore, if we look at how the different continents fit together, that process must have happened fast. So I provide evidences for that. And you may have seen the sci-fi movie Japan Sinks, where there's a lot of scientific aspects that actually connects with viewing that these processes of the continental drift happening much more rapidly. And also try to bring in a chapter that goes against the common grain of the standard mainstream scientific view. Oh, dinosaurs, they lived millions of years ago. But yet we have legends of dragons. And so I'm making the claim that actually dinosaurs and dragons are connected. And so in Nurluc in France was the original name. It changed to Terrasson because there was a legend that there was a lady, brave lady, who very devout, and she conquered that dragon somehow. And so all the older dragon stories, if you look at the descriptions, they look like dinosaurs. So maybe dinosaurs didn't live so long ago, and the dating methods are far off. I even try to go all the way up to the solar system and talk about all the planets and the sun as well, and even our good friend Pluto. And we talk about Iapetus, one of the moons of Saturn. Well, sublimation is going on, where you go directly from ice to gas without going through the liquid state for carbon dioxide. And over time, this process should have run itself out, yet it's still going on. So one small evidence there. And if the planets are young and their moons are young, and Pluto's young and the sun is young, well, maybe the Earth is young itself. So those are the arguments that I try to bring to the fore. Well, all of this put together, you ask yourself, well, why is it important? Why is it a key issue? What does it matter? Well, I did talk about the meaning of life and depression and purpose, and there's one chapter related to that. But it also relates to a lot of other things. Many homeschoolers are okay with the young Earth viewpoint. And so we could bring in school choice. Or where does the government funding come from in the first place? Well, how much funding goes to the young Earth viewpoint? Is that privately funded or publicly funded? Different aspects like that. Well, I'm making a claim that it does relate to public health. It also relates to net censorship. If the powers that be don't like the young Earth view, should they just smash it down and take it off the internet? And so we have our free speech in this country and the First Amendment. So those are some related issues. And just to consider your bias. I have a bias, you have a bias, we all have a bias. But to consider that and to have a discussion and open views, just like John Stuart Mill talked about. And let's see what the various pros and cons are for each view. And so anyway, I'd appreciate you if you would go to my website, totalyouth.us. That's totalyouth.us, and you can connect to my social media. You can get my book, Is a Young Earth Possible? And appreciate your review online on Amazon and other places. And you can also check out my prior book, Yes, Young Earth Science. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I'd appreciate your very much like your feedback on my book, pro or con, either way. And I do believe in a little bit of give and take and discussion on the issues. And thank you very much. Have a great day.